Oh, look at this rude dog coming over and peeing on Brandon's spot. That's your backyard, Brandon. That's your backyard. That's not his backyard. Oh, peeing on Charlie's toys. Who does he think he is? Go away. Why isn't it working? It worked.
It works.
It is 4:30 and, well, I've been super busy in front of the computer all day working on several things. So I really just haven't gotten much vlogging done today. I really wish that I could say that, you know, it was a really interesting day and a lot of things happened, but, you know, like I said, being in front of the computer for most of the day, although I did get a lot done, just isn't very visually appealing. My episode of the Evolve Your Wedding Business podcast went live, so I got pretty excited. I got to watch that, or I got to listen to that. That was pretty exciting. And Stormy's been at school, so like I said, hasn't been the most interesting day. But I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna get my steps in, I'm gonna feel good. I haven't changed my diet, I'm just going to the gym. I want the gym to be enjoyable and I want it to be relaxing mentally. The way that I would get that is by not burning myself out. It's just baby steps. I just love, oh, check this out. Oh yeah, no, he's stuck. I felt guilty, so I got out and started pushing the guy. And as I was pushing the guy's van, this dude showed up, started pushing it with me. And he's like, hey man, yeah, this thing ain't coming out. I got a tow rope. We can hook it up. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. So that's what we did. Brian from Rencor. Good guy, man. Really appreciative. I have some crazy beanie hair.
Wiener hat. Huh?
Wiener hat.
Bye.
Yeah. Do the right thing. Yeah.
It's the underwear.
And to tell your own.
Whoever braved the cold to write "Don't worry, be happy" in the snow, thank you. Today is January 14th, 2016, which means that 7 years ago today, Stormy and I became MySpace official. I hate to toot my own horn, but I think that's pretty impressive. I think in that month alone, we sent over 5,000 text messages to each other. And even though we had talked on the phone and sent a ridiculous amount of text messages, it would still be 12 days until we officially met in person. So I just wanted to take a second to tell the story of how Stormy and I met. Let's start off with a little snapshot of where I was in January of 2009. So I had just graduated film school, like only 3 months before this. And I had just been fired from Best Buy when I first met Stormy. I was living in the guest house of a castle with 11 other roommates. I was 320 pounds and I felt like my life was moving in no direction. I had just spent a year in film school. That was 12 hours a day, 6 days a week of just hustling as much as you could just to, you know, reach this finish line with no direction after you got there. So I was on Craigslist one day, probably looking for something like a motorcycle or something tangible that I thought would make me happy. And then curiosity had got the best of me when I had found the strictly platonic section of Craigslist. Where are you going with all that? What did you do? Charlie, you gotta put all that back in the pantry. And then I found an ad from somebody who said that she was coming out to California on vacation and just wanted a local to show her around. And I thought, well, I'm no longer working at Best Buy and I don't have a job to go to, so yeah, sure, why not? So I responded, probably just out of boredom. 20 minutes later, I get an instant message, because at the time, everybody still had AIM, from a girl who said that she got my email, and she stalked me on MySpace, and she thought that it could be fun. Which later I found out meant that I was the only person who didn't send her a picture of my... So to all the other guys who sent a photo to my future wife of their wiener, thank you. Because without you, she probably wouldn't have picked me. And then I probably wouldn't be here right now, hanging out with this kid.
This kid.
But eventually I warmed up to her and I started texting her back. I found out that she was coming out in a few weeks with her friend and her cousin for her cousin's birthday. We found out that we had a ton in common. Oh, there's your pants. She worked at Buffalo Wild Wings, and I love to eat buffalo wings. And I think it was just a joke at first that we made it MySpace official. Obviously, the distance made it hard to be what we considered to be a real relationship. But we ran with it anyway. Yeah, you got a red straw. Put the yellow one back, please. Yeah, right there. Just drop it. Just let it go. So when the time came to actually meet Stormy in person, I'm gonna admit I was extremely nervous. Like I said, they were visiting, so they were just doing touristy stuff, right? What are you doing in there? So they were coming to visit Hollywood and Highland, which is a very touristy place. LA traffic is completely unpredictable, so I left like an hour, more than an hour before I had to meet them. And for some reason, the traffic gods were watching out for me, and there wasn't a single car on the road, and I got there like 45 minutes early. Which meant 45 minutes of my brain trying to convince me that I was crazy for actually going to meet this girl from Indiana in person. Even though we were already calling ourselves boyfriend and girlfriend. So finally, 45 minutes or so had passed, and I saw her friend, and her cousin starting to walk up the steps. And the steps to Hollywood and Highland are just grand. It's a grand staircase. And I was at the top, and I was sitting on a bench so they couldn't see me, but I could see them. And in those few moments, my brain just went in overdrive, thinking, what are you doing? This is the craziest thing you have ever done in your entire life. But then I thought, if meeting another human being is the craziest thing that I've done in my entire life, then I've lived a pretty boring, safe life. And immediately I tried to come up with the grandest entrance that I could possibly come up with, which was to run up to her as she's walking up the stairs, grab her, pick her up,
Beat me up.
and spin her around as fast as I could. So that's exactly what I did. As I saw them coming up the stairs, I just ran up to her, I grabbed her, picked her up, and spun her around because, I don't know, it sounded romantic, like something that you'd see in a movie. I can only imagine that her friend and her cousin, who thought that it was already crazy for flying out to California to meet a boy that she met on the internet, was now getting kidnapped. And honestly, when I think back to that moment, I wonder how many of the other people in the highly populated Hollywood and Highland also thought that... You okay?
Yeah.
She was getting kidnapped. So I took her to the coolest LA spot that I knew at the time, which was House of Pies. We had fun. I had fun. Stormy didn't eat anything. She was like really shy, and she didn't eat anything. And here I was. I think I had like country fried steak. Like I got a full meal like an idiot. And I had fun though. And apparently she did too, because she wanted to keep talking to me. Eventually the time came where she had to go back to Indiana. And I remember that it sucked. It hurt my heart. Oh, you okay? And that's when I immediately knew that I had formed a connection with another human being that I had never formed before. And honestly, I felt pretty confused at that moment because I think this was the first time that she had ever been on a plane, and I didn't know if I was truthfully ever going to see her again. But fast forward 7 years, we moved, we got married, we lost over 150 pounds together, we had a kid, we bought a house, we started a business, and now we have another kid on the way. Looking back at the happiest and the most important moments of my life, they all include Stormy. So in a way, I think that this anniversary is equally as important as our wedding anniversary. Because I think that this anniversary took an even bigger leap of faith than our wedding did. For our wedding, I knew what I was getting into. It was just the formality of putting rings on our fingers. But January 14th, 2009 was something completely different because I took a risk on a girl who I had never met, who lived across the country. Simply because at the time, it was what my heart told me was the right thing to do. And sometimes just looking at the numbers, just looking at the analytical data, doesn't give you the full story. And you just have to take that leap of faith. And I've taken some bad leaps of faith before in my life. I bought a $200 car with 380,000 miles for $500. I went snowboarding down the wrong side of a mountain once. One time I bought an E-Machines computer. What was I doing with my life? But this, hands down, was the best leap of faith that I've ever taken. So, happy anniversary to us.